Hi everyone, so this video is going to be my end of April updates, and I'm going to start with my new acquisitions. My Orchid Society did a group order with Ching Hua orchids, and then we had a member that arranged a group order with Ecuaflor-A. This one is from Ching Hua, and it is Staurochilus fasciatus. When I purchased this plant, I wasn't expecting it to be so big, but it is, so that's good for me. And you can see that it's in spike. So I just have it potted up in a clay pot with some charcoal. I did cut off part of the stem just so it would sit in the pot a little bit more straight, otherwise it'd be way more crooked. So yeah, I'm very happy to have this plant. And this one is Gongora portentosa. It's another plant that I was not expecting to be very big. It does seem like the pot is too big for the plant, but actually 80% of the plant itself is in the pot. When I got it, the new growths were growing kind of sideways from these old growths. So a big chunk of the plant itself is in the pot. Only the newer stuff is at the top. Well, I cut off all the dead roots, and because there's no roots on these pseudobulbs, and they're old, so they're not going to grow new leaves, I just put charcoal around the side to fill up the pot, and then I just put rock wool around the top that was still, I guess viable is the right word here, but yeah, just rock wool in the area that I expect to see new growths, and charcoal everywhere else. Alright, so we're in the Vanda area, and it looks like the buds are forming very well on my Vanda coerulescens. So I am very confident I will actually get a full flush of blooms on this one, so that's very exciting. And this is my Ascocentrum and ampullaceum, and it looks like what I thought would be a flower spike might actually be another fan. But on the other side here, the flower spike is actually developing into the flower spike. You can see the buds forming. So this is my Paraphalaenopsis laycockii, and it's still doing pretty good on the kulog. And this is my Paph emersonii, and I think moving it here was a good idea. Might not be able to tell on camera, but in person, it's definitely less pale. It's greened up a lot more, so that's good. And this is my Phal javanica. It's doing very well in this plastic bag. I think I will actually take it out and do a bloom video on the flowers because I haven't done that yet, and they're opening really nicely, so that's good. And this is my Dendrobium Scabilingue. It pushed out a few buds without me noticing, so there's one at the top there, there's one on the side, and there's one on this cane as well. So this is my Leptotes bicolor, and the buds haven't blasted yet, so it's really moving along, which is good. And this is Masdevallia amplexa, and it's still blooming. Very, very productive plant. And this is Bulbophyllum annandalei, and it's pushing out a new growth. I actually need to schedule some time to repot the plant. I think the media is going to get a little old. This is Dendrobium Sherry Abe. The flowers have died back on the old spikes, and it's pushing out a new spike. So it did have an infestation, but it's been cleared, so I've put it back in this spot. And this is my Trichoglottis piscilla on the kulog. It's doing fine. I'm questioning whether those growths are actually flower spikes or not. They haven't really moved much since last time. And this is Catasetum gladiatorium crossed with barbatum, and it's pushing out a new growth. And this is Dendrobium Scabilingue, also pushing out a new growth. And this one is Laymilaada. I decided to unpot it to see what's going on with the roots because there wasn't much activity and there's basically no roots, so it's currently in rescue mode. So I just have it sitting on top of some damp sphagnum moss, and if it's growing new roots, then that tells me that it's viable. I haven't seen any activity on this area, but there are definitely new roots growing on this side, so that's a good sign. So my Dendrobium antenatum cross is in bloom. It had 2 flower spikes. The other spike had some insects crawling on it, instead of trying to kill the insects, I just remove the spike because I don't want to deal with it. So like my Dendrobium Sherry Abe, it also had an infestation problem. It's been cleaned for 2 weeks, so I put it back. So this is my Papillonancy Taiwanese, and I'm debating whether that is actually a spike or not. I had initially believed that it was a spike because the new leaves grow at the end of a node like this, whereas this one grew from the side. But if you look at the top of it, it looks just like the top of a leaf. So I'm not sure now. And this is my Vandal Lamilada, and it is pushing out a flower spike. So I decided to move my flask babies to the top shelf to make room for my cacti seedlings in the tank. And they seem to be doing fine in this location. Other than that, there's nothing else to update. So I did end up putting my Dendrobium coerulescens outside to hopefully trigger some buds on it. I haven't seen anything. I don't think I would see any buds now, but perhaps next year. And I think there is a new growth starting, but there's not much activity going on. And I also put my Psychopsiella Limminghei outside, also hoping to trigger some flower spikes. Haven't seen anything yet. This is Polysickness Chulofera, and overall it's been doing fine. You can see it's pushed out a new root, which is great. Some of the leaves at the top have turned brown, but overall the plant is fine. And this is Elena Lawson crossed with Tigrinum, and it finally pushed out a new growth. This is the division that broke off, but there hasn't been any activity on it yet. And this is Brassavola cuculata red form, and it's pushing out a new growth. And this is Bulbophyllum Princess Bajaratana on the kulog. You can see with the root growth there, they're very happy, which is good. The only problem I'm having is the leaf is a little too close to the light and it's starting to yellow, so I'm not sure what to do about it because I can't really make it any lower, otherwise it's going to get in the way. So I might just have to deal with it. And this one is Pilantentheria tenoglossum on the kulog. Also pretty happy on the kulog, I'd say. And this is Dendrobium formosum, and its new growth is doing very well. So last year I got some buds on this, which blasted. So I'm hoping this year I can have the buds actually bloom. This is my Laycockii squalidum, and it's pretty happy in the setup so far. I think I've lost one of the leaves, but it's fine. And it's happily growing this root here, so that's good. And this is my Pedangus dactyloceras, and it's pushing out a flower spike there, and a flower spike there as well. And this is my Vanda Lucastelle flask. I think I will need to deflask it relatively soon. There's at least one guy in there that's very large, so I don't want it to get too big before I remove it. So this is my Pteroceras longical corium, and there are a few things going on. So one of them is on this plant. There's a few nubbins that are starting to poke out. I'm not quite sure what that will be yet though. And there's also something happening on this plant, although I think that's a root. And also as well, it's pushing out a new leaf. So this is my Puffina Rigosa, and it's pushing out a flower spike. Judging by the way it looks like it could potentially bloom. Previously, I've had a few spikes die on me, so as long as I keep up with spraying in the morning, I think it'll be fine. And this is my RLC Durgan, and it's pushing out a new growth, which is good. This is my Vanda Jene. It's very slow to really do anything. It does have 3 active root tips, which is good, but they're slow to grow. And I've kept this on my desk just so it's easier for me to monitor. And I spray the root zone every morning as well, so slowly, but Other than the roots, there isn't really much else going on with the plant. So this is my frag Eva. I've moved it to this room. It's not looking super great. This growth is completely, I want to say rot, but it also doesn't really look like rot. It's some other thing, or it appears to be some other thing. But anyway, I need to remove that growth. This one as well. It's brown inside, but I don't want to remove it because I have this new growth growing. This one also needs to go. This side is relatively healthy, so that's good. And I have a new growth on this side. So I'm going to try putting some dragon's blood in the parts I really can't remove. I'll remove this one, like I said before. And then also, the person that I got this frag from, he said he also sometimes has this problem. And he mentioned to water it less often, so I'm going to wait for this to dry out a bit more before I give it some more water. I've mainly giving it water once a week. When I feed all my plants, basically. It gets the same routine, but that's potentially causing problems, so gotta change for this one. And this is Phal Young Ho Gelb Canary, and it's in bud. And this is Ornithochilus deformis, and it's pushed out this flower spike relatively quickly, actually. So I should see blooms on this one relatively soon. I'd say within the next couple months, I think. And this is my Vanda cristata. It's still in bloom. I don't know if I mentioned it last time, but I did end up putting a plastic bag around this, only to help to keep the humidity a little bit better around the root area. I think I was planning on potting it up or putting it in a vase, but this is the quickest thing I could do without much effort. And I think it did help somewhat. The leaves feel stiffer, or they seem dehydrated less often, so that's good. And it's also pushing out another flower spike. I think I showed that last time, but now it's actually starting to make a move, so that's good. And last but not least is my Dendrobium Scabilingue on the kulog. And this piece is pushing out a new growth, which is good. We'll see how that new growth develops on the kulog, since it's the first one that's grown here. And then on this side, that one on the back there had pushed out a new root, so that's good. I think I might add a little bit more moss around the plant and kind of tie it down a little bit better. But overall, it's done okay. Leaves are kind of dying back on that top growth, which I don't think is a good sign, but I think it'll be fine. Alrighty, so that's my video for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!